Going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio Robinson back with the latest and greatest on the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. Week 2, we're going to the mountains. We're going to see the Denver Broncos. So I'm bringing on Broncos insider from KOA, Colorado, and Broncos country tonight, Benjamin Allbright. How you doing today, Ben?
Doing pretty well. I apologize that we're broadcasting live from my staircase, but I got to keep an eye on my new puppy here. So.
It's all good, man. You gotta take care of the dog. You know, people love dogs out here, man. People like dogs more than they like humans because they are better than us anyway. So I ain't mad at you. But week 2, what a week 1 it was to start the season. Wasn't that a wacky ass first week of football?
It really was. I mean, I guess we all should have seen the Aaron Rodgers thing coming. It was the only fitting ending to that storyline. You had the Cincinnati Bengals that didn't even bother to show up for week 1. Arizona fought harder than everybody thought, as you guys all well know. It's one of the week 1 stuff can be fluky sometimes like that. One of the things that as a sports bettor that I always keep an eye on is quarterbacks that did not play in the preseason or barely played in the preseason. The week 1 unders for those always cash, and we were 100% on that this week as well.
Oh yeah, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. I swear they combined for under 200 yards between the two of them. The Burrow didn't even throw for 100 yards on Sunday. What was even happening?
I don't know, but I know I drafted T. Higgins and Drake London for my fantasy team and got double donutted. So
double donutted. Yeah, they didn't do anything, but stick with them though, because early in fantasy, it's never a real tell of what's to come with the season coming. But we got the Broncos on Sunday. First year of Sean Payton, second year of Russell Wilson. Two polarizing guys right now for different reasons. You guys, the Broncos gave Russell Wilson a $242 million contract and went on to go 5-12 in his first year with the Broncos, gave up a boatload of picks and cash. How much of the blame pie does Russ get for the 2022 Denver Broncos?
Well, quite a bit. I mean, certainly not all of it, and I wouldn't even put the majority on him, but I would put, quite a bit on him. It was his desire and his idea to turn himself into Drew Brees and away from what it is that he had been previously. And as we found out last year, that didn't work. Russell Wilson isn't Drew Brees, and that's sort of the thing. Now you bring in the coach that made Drew Brees, a household name. Although, to be fair to Drew was the exact same quarterback with the Chargers. He just didn't get as many passing attempts. If you extrapolate the passing attempts out, he would have thrown for 5,000 yards in a Marty Schottenheimer offense, which is mind-boggling. I think to me, but Russ wanted to be something different. He got a team to take a chance on him with that, and it didn't work. You also had a head coach that was in way over his head. Nathaniel Hackett is a nice guy, and to be perfectly clear, I'm rooting for that dude to win every game that he can win, as long as it's not against the Denver Broncos. But he was in way over his head, and he hired a lot of his buddies where he should have probably hired people with more experience. And it was sort of a problem here. I mean, by the end of the season, you had an offensive lineman fighting a backup quarterback on the sideline, fist fighting a backup quarterback on the sideline because the offensive line had decided they weren't picking Russ up after he got sacked anymore. And so all of that is just the wrong answer. And so, I think I think that there's enough blame to go around for everybody. Russ, while they had the same number of points as they had in their season opener last year and lost the game 17-16, just like they did last year against Seahawks this week against the Raiders, I think that he was certainly more efficient than he had previously been, and his success rate was better, meaning he got more than 60% of his yardage on first down, more than 40% on second, and converted thirds. Last year, he was the worst quarterback in the league at that. This year, he's top 5 after one game. So the groundwork is there. They just have to get more explosive plays.
It's crazy because I look at a line and see 27 for 34 completions, and then you see 177 yards. It doesn't add up, It's getting the rookie quarterback.
150 of which came in the first half, or 120 of which came in the first half. So.
Hey, he's getting the rookie quarterback protect him from himself treatment. It's crazy seeing how this is a guy who's surely going to get a gold jacket, I think, one day. And he gets to Denver and looks like a complete shell of himself. And how much better can he get with the hiring of Sean Payton? Oh, and I know you have thoughts about Sean Payton too. So what did you feel about the hiring of it? Was it a desperation move? Did no one want this job? Because I know it took a little while for Denver to get somebody to take the head coaching job after the firing of Hackett.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't their first choice. I'll tell you that. They ultimately paid the price that it took because it was that, or well, let me walk you through this because I don't want to mention this name and it'd be a soundbite without giving context. Um, so they wanted Jim Harbaugh. I mean, there's no secret to anybody, and ultimately that situation didn't work out. They kind of through the interview process fell in love with D'Amico Ryans quite a bit, and they felt like that might be a direction they'd go. But then they went and re-pursued Jim Harbaugh out of nowhere, like just took a flight up to Michigan to re-pursue Jim Harbaugh. D'Amico Ryans got wind of it, and he was like, "Okay, my decision's made. They're not committed to me. I'm going to Houston. It's my home anyway." So Ryans is now out of the picture. Harbaugh rebuffed him for a second time. They'd come away with the interviews with Sean Payton kind of thinking like he was pretty arrogant. They weren't really 100% sold. Plus the cost to get him, trading a first and more, plus, paying him was going to be a problem. So they reached back out to Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, who had interviewed, for the job, and they went to Hackett and then ultimately went to Payton. He told them at that point, he's like, look, I gave Jerry my word. I'm coming back as DC. I'm not going to break my word. So their third choice was out. So then they started calling around some of these external candidates, that they had and everything. And there was a mystery name that floated around last year. That mystery name was Jason Garrett, by the way, as they were trying to figure out what it was they were going to do. And then ultimately they looked at Garrett and John Gannon, a guy they were high on who was going to go to Arizona, and some of these other guys. And they said, you know what, Sean Payton has a track record. Let's just go with Sean Payton. And so then they settled on Payton. Now, my thoughts on Sean Payton aside, I do think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he benefited from a top 5 quarterback, and any coach that only got one Super Bowl out of a top 5 quarterback bothers me. Like, for instance, Mike McCarthy. I think Mike McCarthy's a good coach. I just don't think he's a great one. Same thing with Sean Payton. I think he's a very good coach. I don't think he's a great one. I think that he'll have Russ, if Russ sticks around beyond this year, I think they can get the Broncos to the playoffs. I'm not sure he wins a Super Bowl, but I think he can get him to the playoffs. I just think Sean Payton also has too much of a tie to Sean Payton. He brought in a bunch of his guys. He went out and traded for a kicker that missed kicks that cost him the game.
Lost him the game last week.
Right. You're bringing in guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey, who, I like, but, he's kind of just a guy. You're cutting guys like KJ Hamler and Kendall Hinton to bring guys like, Lil Jordan Humphrey and then things like that in. And, I don't know. I feel like that if you're going to win in this league, you got to kind of at times keep an eye on the business aspect of it. The Broncos have no speed at receiver. I mean, they brought in Philip Dorsett, and he ran out of bounds, and he got 6 plays. Marvin Mims barely played. I mean, they just don't have anybody to have explosive plays, and that's what Russell Wilson's game is. Russell Wilson's whole career, his game has been hanging on the ball for 3+ seconds, buying time with his legs, and hitting a beautiful bucket throw, deep throw. And that's his game. And, I think that being efficient and getting him in a rhythm with the short stuff is fine, but you're going to win with Russ and explosive plays. And if you don't have anybody that can run the routes to get those explosive plays, you're in a world of hurt.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But like Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, they definitely have big names. They can be polarizing. But Denver, I feel like they need to do something, and they need to do something fast before they become the number 2 in pecking order for football in Colorado, because what Deion's doing down in Boulder, they're making some noise over there. Denver's going to be the second football ticket in town, man.
Yeah, it's kind of there right now, to be honest with you. Colorado, it's funny. Like last year, the radio station I work for, we're the exclusive home of the Broncos and the Colorado Buffaloes. And so last year we couldn't give away Buffaloes tickets. We would have giveaways. We couldn't even give them away. This year, we've got lines out the door for them. Broncos tickets, we still, Broncos tickets are a hot item, and we still give those away all the time. But Buffalo's tickets, we couldn't give away 4 8-packs of them last year. This year, one ticket will go you a couple of $100 if you try to sell it.
That's crazy, man. Let's go Buffs, though. I'm an honorary fan of the Buffs now because I love Deion. I love Sanders. I love everything that's happening over there. I want nothing but success for them. But week 2, Commanders, Broncos, we stumbled through our week 1 matchup versus the Cardinals, which you previously mentioned, and we know what the Broncos did week 1. Is it too early to say this is a must-win for the Broncos? Because in the division that you play in, the conference that you play in, and dropping back-to-back games, one being divisional, that would kind of be a nightmare start for Sean Payton, right?
Yeah, and you go into that 80% don't make the playoffs, statistically speaking. I don't know about must win, but it's certainly a game that if you lose is going to raise some eyebrows, especially with the meat of the schedule coming up. I mean, this was supposed to be the soft part of the schedule, you have a Miami game in there, but the first 4 or 5 games, you got a Jets team that has no Aaron Rodgers, you got the Bears, you got the Raiders, so I mean, like it's supposed to be the soft part of the schedule, right? Before you get to the Chiefs and the Bills and all that kind of stuff. And so if you don't win these games, yeah, you might be in a world of hurt. I don't know about must win, but it's definitely something that you'll start feeling the pressure. You lose this one.
Yeah, it just feels like a game that could go either way. I see right now Broncos -3.5, which is interesting to me. But I feel like Washington, we have to earn our respect. Like people just ignore the fact that we went 8-1, which is nothing to be impressive. But most people see us as like a top 5 pick in the draft team. Every year when the draft ends, in the next year's mock draft, they always have us numbers picked 1 through 5, and we never get there. And Ron Rivera teams never really bottom out, but we'll see on Sunday. I like how we match up against this team. What are the keys to victory for the Broncos to win this game Sunday?
Well, let's start with the Washington side of the house. You got to pick on Damari Mathis. Stay away from Surtain, and that's what the Raiders did. They just kept throwing to Jacoby Myers on Damari Mathis, and somehow you had Jacoby Myers looking like Jerry Rice out there. But and that's sort of the thing. Asang Bassi, the nickel corner, is pretty good, and of course Pat Surtain is an all-world corner. But Damari Mathis, who started slow last year and got good, has got to prove himself, and he did not acquit himself well against the Raiders. For the Broncos, it's the backs. Sean Payton offenses are predicated. I know everybody thinks of Drew Brees and 5,000 yards and all that kind of stuff, but really Alvin Kamara and those kind of guys are really what make that offense tick. Can the running backs get the yardage on the ground and through the air? Because I mean, the leading receiver for the Broncos last week was Samaje Perine. Right. And you guys are very familiar with that with Samaje. So, and by the way, he's hilarious. When he first got signed by Denver, he told a great story about back in Oklahoma. See, he pulled up behind some lady who was trying to change the tire on her car, but she didn't have a jack. So he stood there and held the car up while she changed the tire. That's how strong that guy is. And he's like, but it was only an electric car. I'm like, dude, those are heavier than regular cars because of the battery, but whatever. So, but the Samaje and Javonte Williams have really got to come through because this offense runs through them. I mean, they're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. It's going to be a lot of 2 tight ends with Mannertz and Troutman. Dulcich is out for this one. I will tell you one thing. I'll break a little news for you here. Sources telling me that Jerry Jeudy's going to be back for this game. So he's trending in the right direction. It's not 100, but they're telling me he's trending in the right direction. He should be good to go for this game. So that'll be interesting to see because obviously they didn't have him against the Raiders. So that's going to be the key. The key is going to be to keep the ground game going and effective and get 2 or 3 explosive plays in the game. If they're not able to do that, they'll lose.
Yeah, man, because y'all definitely could use Jeudy back because relying on Samaje Perine to catch passes and Lil Jordan Humphrey, that's not something that I don't think is going to be a recipe for success for the Denver Broncos. And we are a handful, our defensive line. There's not many things that I will say are great about our team, but that unit with Daron Payne, with Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, and don't get me started on 99 because I don't even want to talk about him until I see him on a football field on Sunday. But that group is special. How good is the Denver Broncos offensive line?
It's shaky, and that's the key matchup, I think, in this one. I just talked about the running backs and the explosive plays, but you have to have the protection hold up to make those things happen, right? They brought in Ben Powers. They bring in Mike McGlinchey. They pay those guys top dollar. I think Powers is pretty good. McGlinchey's is hit or miss. The strength of this team is the guards. Quinn Meinertz and Ben Powers are the best players on the offensive line, and they're pretty good. The center position, Lloyd Cushenberry's not bad, but he lacks, anybody who bull rushes with power, he kind of struggles against, and I think he's going to struggle in this one because you've got a guy that can do that. On the outside, you got Garrett Bolles, who's hit or miss. You get inside his head and he melts down. Otherwise, he's an incredible athlete, but as far as being a football player, he holds too much and he gets caught up by double moves too much. McGlinchey, it'll remind you of Nate Solder. That's a tackle in your division you should be familiar with. Kind of the same player, really. So he can play well and has played well, but he's just. He's got the hold up on the outside, and that's sort of been the thing. I mean, the tackles have been a problem for the Broncos for a while. We'll see what they're able to do. I expect your line to get a couple of sacks in this game. You'll probably come away with a 3 to 4 sack game. They got done against the Raiders what they needed to. It held Max Crosby mostly in check, but the rest of the Raiders line is kind of just some dudes. It's not like your line, which is very good, and it's going to be a problem, I think, for the Broncos on Sunday.
Yeah, we're dogs up front. You were on with my guy Big Douglas yesterday. I heard you mention something that definitely surprised me. You mentioned something about Garrett Bolles to Washington in the offseason. That was a conversation?
There was some conversations had. Again, I don't know how deep in the weeds those got because Washington really didn't want him. So, I think there were some phone calls made about a potential trade, and I know that at some point that had materialized as part of the trade and ultimately fell through. I don't know if it was Washington reaching out about Judy or Sutton and then turned to pivot to Bull. That kind of. I don't know all the specifics. I just know that Garrett Bolles' name was shopped to Washington and was immediately shot down.
Okay. It wouldn't surprise me if we didn't want it because Ron Rivera refuses to upgrade positions of need. The line and linebackers, we just ignore it, throw Band-Aids on it, and try to keep it pushing. So that would not surprise me. That sounds like the mantra of Ron Rivera. Patrick Surtain, to me, is the best corner in the league right now. That guy's a problem. I saw the work he put in against Devontae Adams last week. Terry's dealing with turf toe, and Jahan Dotson is ascending and actually has the best chemistry with our new quarterback, Sam Howell, at the moment. But whoever's lined up against Mathis, that seems like that has to be the move for the entire game. Keep going at this guy, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what you have to do. Until Mathis can prove he can hold up, that's what Washington's going to have to do to win the game. I mean, you're just going to have to run the football effectively. You're going to have to throw at Mathis most of the game. So Tan will shut you down. I mean, he just will. You're going to get you'll get a catch or two, but that'll be about it. And then you don't really want to challenge the safeties too much. Justin Simmons is very athletic, very rangy, and he'll make you pay for it. Kareem Jackson has lost a step. He'll still smoke you when he hits you, but he's lost a little bit of a step. If you're going to challenge somebody, you want to challenge him deep.
You want to challenge him, D? Okay. And I think we can take the top off. Sam missed a couple things. Sam Howell, what is you guys' impression of Sam Howell based on the 2 starts and what you known about him from college?
Well, I liked him coming out. I saw plenty of his tape at North Carolina. They came out here to Colorado to practice against Colorado State. And, got to see him up close in person. I like him. He's a smart guy. I think he's a good football player. I think he can be a good starting quarterback in this league. I don't know that he's better than good, but, think of kind of Andy Dalton. Dalton had a fantastic – I know there's jokes about him, but Dalton actually had a fantastic career, in the NFL. He had a great career and revitalized that franchise for a while. And so I think he's kind of in that mold. Arm's a little stronger than Eddie Dalton's, but that's basically, I think he can be that guy who can be productive. He's got more athleticism with his legs than you think he does. And, and Dalton did too. And so I think that, I think he can be that kind of player in this league where he can be a top 15 guy, maybe not a top 10, but be a top 15 guy.
Okay. I know you guys used to have some crazy edge rushers down there in Denver. Now we got Frank Clark. And what's the edge rushers looking like? I know it's not as scary as when Von Miller was in his heyday and Bradley Chubb for the little bit of time that he was there when he was actually on the field. What's the pass rush for Denver consist of at the current juncture?
Well, up front, the big bodies, you've got Purcell at the nose, DJ Jones, who came over from the 49ers, and then Zach Allen from the Cardinals. And Allen has really been kind of phenomenal, as one of the big fellas. And then on the outside, on the edge, you've got Baron Browning is hurt. He was a starter. So you've got Jonathan Cooper filling in for him for a 7th-round pick, and then you've got Randy Gregory on the other side. And then they rotate Frank Clark and Nick Benito in pass rush specialist situations only.
Okay. So if everything clicks right for this Broncos team in 2023, how good can this team be?
I think they're a 9-win football team. Can flirt with the playoffs, be competitive into December. I think there's still too many holes for this to be a deep playoff contender team. But if the ball breaks the right way, they stay healthy. Who knows? They've been pretty bad at staying healthy so far. I mean, obviously the receiving core is completely depleted. Jalen Virgil done for the year. Tim Patrick done for the year. Jared Judy was out week 1. So the receiving core
is hurt too, right?
Yeah, Stearns, the starting safety, is done for the year. Greg Dulcich going to be done for 6 weeks. Baron Browning, we just talked about the edge rusher, so they have not avoided injury. But if they can stay healthy, I mean, you're probably looking at a 9-win football team.
Okay, and give me your prediction for Sunday. Give me a score prediction and who wins Sunday's matchup versus Washington.
If this was later in the year and at Washington, I would probably take Washington. But you're talking about week 2 at home in Denver. It's sort of it sort of matters here, like the Broncos, it really matters. So I think they'll be motivated. I'm gonna take the Broncos in this one in a low scoring, close game, something like 2017.
2017. Yep. I think it could go either way. And the Washington that I'm used to, I'm a diehard. I bleed it. You see the colors on me. We normally lay an egg in a matchup like this. Go back to last year. We beat the Jags week 1. We go up to Detroit week 2 and absolutely stink up the joint. We usually follow momentum with a stinker, but I'm trying to believe in new karma and new vibes for my team. I'm going to pick us 23-20 over the Broncos and start 2-0 for the first time since Rex Grossman led us to 2-0 back in 2011. It's been that long since we've been 2-0. It's kind of disgusting. But before you go, I got to ask you a couple more things. You are very early on big national NFL news, and people give you flack on Twitter about it, and I love how you carry yourself on Twitter, by the way. Please don't ever change. You were the first person that said Eric Bieniemy to Washington. You mentioned it in passing in January, very early, and it ended up coming out. What are your early predictions for who a GM head coach could be for Washington in 2024?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Eric Bieniemy is auditioning for the job this year. I think that's something they have their eye on. I think he's auditioning for that. And if that happens, oh man, who would be his GM? There's a couple of guys I think jump out at me. The former Bears GM would be one. There's a couple of guys in the Kansas City organization right now that I think would be
Borgonzi. I would love Borgonzi.
Yeah. Yeah, if George Payton were to get fired here in Denver, and Sean Payton brings in his guy, like Ireland or Pace or whatever, I could see that George Payton being a guy that would get hired there as well. So those are the things. As far as any other coaches, I mean, there really isn't a short list yet. We kind of know about the beginning of October who the guys are that everybody's going to be interviewing this offseason. I think Canales is one that's going to get some interviews that hasn't before. Ben Johnson will be a hot name again, probably.
That's what I get my eyes on if it's not Bieniemy. Yep.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think Washington will get an offensive guy one way or the other if Ron Rivera is fired, whether that's Bieniemy in-house or someone else.
The first big axing of the 2023 season will be?
Oh, that's a good question. Brandon Staley is my guess.
Ooh, Brandon Staley. So you got the Chargers really struggling to come out.
I mean, they just find ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of imminent victory over and over again. And I know Brandon. He was here. He worked under Vic Fangio when he was here in Denver. I like him. He's a smart guy, but I think he outsmarts himself sometimes. And they just never got the defense right there, with the Chargers. They give up too much on the ground, and it opens things up, and they just can't get that defense right. So I think he's probably the one. I would say that Chicago coaching staff is in troubles. Maybe not the head coach. Luke Getsy certainly is.
OC.
Yeah, so that's one to keep your eye on. And I don't know. I'm just kind of running down the list in my head right now. Those are the main ones that I can think of, though. Kevin Stefanski, if they flop of the Browns.
Okay, man. If the Bears have to fire their OC, then that means that everybody in the room's getting a finger pointed at them but the quarterback, and then you're going to start having to have a Justin Fields conversation.
I think we need to have that now. I mean, he's had as many starts as Jamarcus Russell did in his career, and his statistics outside of the rushing are appreciably worse than Jamarcus Russell's throwing the football. I think we need to have that conversation now.
Yeah, man, the Ohio State quarterback stigma still lives strong in 2023. If Russ stinks up the joint and puts up another rookie line of 16 and 11 and under 4,000 yards, how do the Broncos move past this situation with the contract that they're giving him and the age he is?
Well, he won't be here if he does that after this year. I'll just tell you. And we've got Walmart money here. They don't care. They'll either do a cut with a post June 1 designation to kind of ease the cap hit, or try to trade him, and basically offer draft picks for somebody to take the contract.
Man, that would be a nasty end to the Russell era. We were close. We wanted Russ. He said no. He did not say he would waive the no trade clause to come to Washington. Went to Denver. We'll see how it plays out. Appreciate you for stopping by the show today, big guy.
Absolutely, brother. For you anytime.